Cyber threat intelligence is data that is analyzed in order to understand what motivates the attacker and what are their targets. The main purpose of threat intelligence is to show organizations the various risks that they face from external threats and attack groups. The findings that we collect as part of our intel, on the one hand, feed the XDR. It maintains an up-to-date detections for any new threat or vulnerabilities that was observed. It also feeds the MDR, the SOC team, with more better information that allows the team to keep a closer eye on what matters the most. Together with the XDR and CyOps, CTI completes the trinity of protection. All of the information, attack flows, new vulnerabilities, and much more are sent to our customers as part of the CTI service to keep them aware and up to date with the latest security news. We can see some information from the reports that we publish each month. There is a summary of the monthly cyber news. There are also some information about the vulnerabilities that exist that we were able to detect during that month. We also provide a score for each vulnerability to highlight what requires further attention, and of course, if there is current patch that is valid for the particular vulnerability. And we do talk about ransomware. Ransomware, we know how important it is, and we do show information about the group activities, what we need to be aware of the most, and this is all part of the report that we publish on part of the service. We can demonstrate it through different approaches, the fisherman and the hunter. First, we'll talk about the fisherman. This is a passive approach, and it's about waiting for the attacker to lure into my honeypot. We read about them, collect information, and react accordingly. However, today's struggles require us to become the hunter, to take proactive action. Sometimes we need to get our hands dirty, actively searching the darknet in order to preempt the number one cause of data breach. We're talking about compromised credentials. I'm mentioning that because there isn't enough awareness of that problem. Security vendors keep working in the good old ways of providing the known toolset, an EDR, an XDR, without extending the visibility into the unknown. How do we move from passive to proactive in order to provide a solution for that need? A good threat intelligence extends the limit to collecting data, being present in the attacker playground where all the actions happen. What if we could get our hands on those data leaks that contains the compromised credentials, the stolen credentials? Wouldn't that be great? What if it already exists? One word, Lighthouse. Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a service that allows us to see and hear everything that happens beneath the surface. We're constantly searching the darknet for details that might be sensitive or have an impact released to one of our customers. To better understand what exactly the Lighthouse is, we first need to understand what an info stealer is. An info stealer is a malware that's designed to target and exfiltrate user-related information, such as password, cookies, banking information, and even they target crypto wallets. Now, if any one of you wants to buy it, it's also available for sale. So everyone can buy that online. And it also been part of sort of an initial access for ransomware activities. So sometimes we do see some infection by ransomware that started by an info stealer that created a command and control to the attacker, and that leads to a ransomware activity. Let's see what an example of how an attack flow can look like. So on the left, we see a user. For example, a user receives an email with an attachment. That attachment contains the payload of that info stealer. In that case, the info stealer is called Wedline. This is one of the most popular info stealers that exist on 2022. Now, once the user was attempted to download that file and to execute it, so that's when the machine becomes compromised. That's when the activity, that's when the malware started collecting information from the machine, and then it's sending it, let's see if I get, and then it's sending it to the data, to the command and control server of the attacker. Now, from that point, it's very easy. The attacker takes that information and usually publish that on some communication channels such as Discord, Telegram, also the darknet in a certain forums, and that's when we step in. That's when the lighthouse steps in, because we are able to be the man in the middle. We see those publications, we see those data leaks, and we collecting them, and we perform sort of an automation to see if that information belongs to one of our customers, and then we are able to let them know right on time before someone is using those information to get into their environment. As part of our CTI service, the Lighthouse monitors and collects information from three main data sources. We have the underground forums. On the darknet, we have some private groups. The private groups are also in the darknet and also exist on the wild. And we do have information about the command and control services that the attacker use to all of the data. Sometimes we are able to get possession about, we are able to control and get into those servers in order to retrieve data from the attackers. Now, it's important to mention that it requires time and experience to build a reputation for those forums. Not everyone can just go inside and get that information. In addition to that, we have some accounts with high reputation that allows us to collect that information. This is an example of how the data looks like, the data that we are able to collect. As you can see on the right, this is an example of a file that the attacker releases. It contains information about the file location. So this is the info stealer location. It also contains some information about the location of the compromised machine. So we can see that it is located in Utah. The languages that it speaks is English. It basically been taken by of the keyboard functionality. And also we can see that what hardware that the machine has and what antiviruses it uses. Now, here we can see the different files that we're getting once we get that data leaks, that possession. We can see here, this is what's interesting the most. We can see all of the credential users that was compromised. It includes the URL, it includes the username and password, and of course, also some cookies that allows the attacker to perform an hijacking for the session cookies and to log into those websites. Okay, let's see some large companies that was attacked by different types of info stealers. Maybe you know them. We have Microsoft, Cisco, NVIDIA, and Uber. All of these have been breached using a leaked employee's credential as the initial access vector for the attack. To summarize, ransomware attacks are here to stay. They have a big impact, $4.5 million on average to recover, based on the report, of course, that we saw. How the XDR comes into the picture. We saw that XDR can provide a solution for the ransomware, but it's just not enough. Organizational constraint, we have 4 million open positions. There aren't enough manpower or qualified manpower to deal with that, to maintain and to review those alerts, that information that we receive from the XDR. SOC team is required. Compromised credentials are #1 cause for data breach. It requires a dynamic and an active approach that takes the threat intelligence to the next level, a lighthouse. the XDR, MDR, and CTI creates a trinity. It's a CTI, it's a trinity that creates an holistic solution together with additional features and services that are part of overall Cynet 360 solution. You can get everything into one solution, one piece that will contain all of that. Of course, there is still a lot more we could show, but for that, feel free to find me on the Cynet booth for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody in the audience have any questions at all? Or over here, just so the mic is coming towards you.
Thanks very much. The UK government has about 40 different companies, major companies, working in MDR, and there are 4 or 5 different types of solution. So how does yours fit into the scheme of things, making you use the word holistically, and what makes yours different from the others?
Yeah, I think that, I want to focus on the MDR. When it comes to MDR, managed detection and response, so usually, the security staff have, let's say, a limitation with their skills. They can detect a certain activity, but they can't take it to the next level. They can't really tell you if it's indeed a potential risk or even solve that. I think that one of the most important things with MDR, for example, is to take a team that can do everything, that can perform a malware analysis, that if you're sending them a file, they won't just tell you to delete it. They will investigate the file and come back to you with the findings. Now, XDR can be, every company sees differently in XDR. Some of the companies will provide an additional solution to that. Every company takes it to their own place. But I think that, there isn't perfect. We can't be perfect, but we can provide as much as solution and information that we can. And once you have that human layer of protection, a good MDR team, that's cover everything, because they can see some information that the product not necessarily can give to you. They can look on the data and they can raise a flag when they see something that requires further attention.
Any other questions? I'm just interested with the skills gap and the kind of that, as I think you said, 25% of people are either have the skills or don't have the skills. Is it going to be solutions like this are going to help to plug that whilst kind of academia and upskilling happens around the world, really, because that skills gap is impacting everybody?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Now, most of the companies have a certain solution, security solution. Each and every one of depending on the budget. But when it comes to all of them or most of them, so they have a solution. They counting on it to do the job, but they don't have enough manpower to monitor that. They just rely on that solution and think that it can solve everything. But with today's sophistication, with today's zero attacks that we see, you need to have that human layer. And I think that MDR, a managed detection and response team, like a SOC team, perfect very well, because they already have the experience. You don't need to hire them, and they can use the data, the output from the solution for the XDR, and just monitor that and tell you exactly what matters, what you need to put an eye on. They will get rid of the background noises that sometimes a security solution can cause, false positive, and only focus and let you know about what really matters.
It's been interesting, a lot of the sections today. Obviously, there's been a lot with regards to automation, but that human element still remains really important. Any other questions before we close up? Thank you.
Thank you.